Hello, good beings, and welcome back to Midnight Requiem. Today we'll be talking about an American author who is best known for her novels about vampires and other supernatural creatures, Anne Rice. Rice was Christine Howard Allen O'Brien, but hated her first name so much that she changed it to Anne in first grade. The city of New Orleans, with its elaborate cemeteries and voodoo heritage, was an ideal place to grow up amid a family of imaginative storytelling Irish Catholics. Rice spent much of her early life in the city before moving to Texas and later to San Francisco. She was raised in an observant Catholic family but became agnostic as a young adult. She began her professional writing career with publications of Interview with the Vampire in 1976 while living in California, and began writing sequels to the novel in the 1980s. In the mid-2000s, following a publicized return to Catholicism, Rice published the novels Christ the Lord out of Egypt and Christ the Lord, the Road to Cana, fictionalized accounts concerning incidents in the life of Jesus. Several years later, she distanced herself from organized Christianity, citing disagreement with the Catholic Church's stance on social issues, but pledging that faith in God remained central to her life. However, she did consider herself a secure humanist. Rice's books have sold over 100 million copies, making her one of the best-selling authors of modern times. While reaction to her early works were initially mixed, she gained a better reception with critics in the 1980s. Her writing style and literary content of her works have been analyzed by literary commentators. She was married to a poet and painter, Stan Rice, for 41 years, from 1961 until his death from brain cancer in 2002 at age 60. She and Stan had two children, Michelle, who died of leukemia at age 5, and Christopher, who is also an author. In addition to her vampire novels, Rice authored books such as The Feast of All Saints, adapted for television in 2001, and Servant of the Bones, which formed the basis of a 2011 comic book miniseries. Several books from the Vampire Chronicles have been adapted as comics and manga by various publishers. Rice also authored erotic fiction under the pen name Anne's family NAN or credited, including Exit to Eden, which was later adapted into a 1994 film. Early in life, Rice spent most of her youth in New Orleans, which forms the backdrop against which many of her works are set. She and her family lived in a rented home of her maternal grandmother, Alice Allen, known as Mama Allen, at 2301 Street, Charles Avenue in the Irish Channel, which Rice said was widely considered a Catholic ghetto. Allen, who began working as a domestic shortly after separating from her alcoholic husband, was an important early influence in Rice's life, keeping the family and household together. As Rice's mother sank deeper into alcoholism, Allen died in 1949, but the O'Briens remained in her home until 1956, when they moved to 2524 Street, Charles Avenue, a former rectory, convent, and school owned by parish, to be closer to both the church and support for Catherine's addiction. As a young child, Rice studied at St. Alphonsus School, a Catholic institution previously attended by her father. Here's a little bit about her male given names. Rice said, well, my birth name is Howard Allen because apparently my mother thought it was a good idea to name me Howard. My father's name was Howard. She wanted to name me after Howard, and she thought it was a very interesting thing to do. She was a bit of a bohemian, a bit of mad woman, a bit of a genius, and a great deal of great teacher. And she had the idea that naming a woman Howard was going to give that woman an unusual advantage in the world. However, according to authorized biography Primes of the Night by Catherine Ramsland, Rice's father was the source of his daughter's birth name, thinking back to the days when his own name had been associated with girls, and perhaps in an effort to give it away, Howard named the little girl Howard Ellen Frances O'Brien. Rice became Anne on her first day of school, when a nun asked her what her name was. She told the nun Anne, which she considered a pretty name. Her mother, who was with her, let it go without correcting her, knowing how self-conscious her daughter was for her real name. From the day on, everyone she knew addressed her as Anne, and her name was legally changed in 1947. Rice was confirmed in the Catholic Church when she was 12 years old and took the full name Howard Allen Francis Phineas LeCoury O'Brien, adding the names of a saint and of an aunt who was a nun. I was honored to have my aunt's name, she said, but it was my burden and joy as a child to have strange names. When Rice was 15 years old, her mother died as a result of alcoholism. Soon afterward, she and her sisters were placed by their father in St. Joseph Academy. Rice described St. Joseph's as something out of Jane Eyre, a depicted, awful medieval type of place. I really hated it and wanted to leave. I felt betrayed by my father. In November 1957, Rice's father married Dorothy Von Beaver. On the subject of the couple's first meeting, Rice recalled, "My father wrote her a formal letter inviting her to lunch, which I had delivered to her house. I was so nervous. In the note, she enclosed a pin, which she was to wear if she accepted the invitation. The next day, she had the pin on. In 1958, when Rice was 16, her father moved the family to North Texas, purchasing their first home in Richardson. Rice first met her future husband, Stan Rice, in a journalism class while they were both students at Richardson High School. Graduating from Richardson High in 1959, Rice completed her first year as a Texas Women's University in Denton and transferred to North Texas State College for her second year. She dropped out when she ran out of money and was unable to find employment. Soon after, she moved to San Francisco and stayed with family and a friend until she found work as an insurance claims processor. She persuaded her former roommate from Texas Women's University, Jeannie Mathis, to join her, and they found an apartment in the Haight-Ashbury district. Mathis acquired a job at the same insurance company as Rice. Soon after, they began taking night courses at University of San Francisco, an all-male Jesuit school that allowed women to take classes at night. For Easter vacation, Anne returned home to Texas, rekindling her relationship with Stan Rice. After her return to San Francisco, Stan Rice came for a week-long visit during summer break. He returned to Texas. Rice moved back in with the Percys. Anne Mathis left San Francisco in August to enroll in the nursing program in Oklahoma. Sometime later, Anne received a special delivery letter from Stan Rice asking her to marry him. They married on October 14, 1961, in Denton, Texas, soon after she turned 20 years old and when he was just weeks from his 19th birthday. The Rices moved back to San Francisco in 1962, experiencing the birth of the hippie movement firsthand as they lived in the Haight-Ashbury district, Berkeley, and later at the Castro district. "I am totally conservative person," she later told the New York Times. "In the middle of Haight-Ashbury in the 1960s, I was typing away while everybody was dropping acid and smoking grass. I was known as my own square." Rice attended San Francisco State University and obtained a B.A. in political science in 1964. Their daughter Michelle, later nicknamed Mouse, was born to the couple on September 21st, 1966. And Rice later interrupted her graduate studies at SFSU to become a PhD candidate at the University of California, Berkeley. She soon became disenchanted with the emphasis on literary criticism and the language requirements. In Rice's words, "I wanted to be a writer, not a literature student." Rice returned to San Francisco State in 1970 to finish her studies in creative writing and graduated with an M.A. in 1972. Stan Rice became an instructor at San Francisco State shortly
after receiving his own MA in creative writing from the institution and later chaired the creative writing department before retiring in 1988. Her daughter was diagnosed with acute leukemia in 1970. While Rice was still in the graduate program, Rice later described having a prophetic dream months before Michelle became ill that her daughter was dying from something wrong with her blood. Michelle died in 1972, shortly before she would have turned 6. Rice's son Christopher was born in Berkeley, California, 1978. He has become a best-selling author in his own right, publishing his first novel at the age of 22. Rice, an admitted alcoholic, and her husband Stan Rice quit drinking in the mid-1979 so their son would not have the life that she had as a child. In 2008, Rice posted a YouTube video to celebrate 28 years of her sobriety. Rice's influences were Charles Dickens, Virginia Woolf, John Milton, Ernest Hemingway, William Shakespeare, the Brontë sisters, Jean-Paul Sartre, Henry James, Arthur Conan Doyle, H. Rider Haggard, and Stephen King. As influences on her work, she repeatedly returned to King's Firestarter for inspiration, saying, "I study the novel Firestarter when I'm blocked. Reading the first few pages of Firestarter helps to get me going." Interview with the Vampire. In 1973, while still grieving the loss of her daughter in 1966 to 1972, Rice took a previously written short story and turned it into her first novel, the best-selling Interview with the Vampire novel. She based her vampires on Gloria Holding's character in Dracula's Daughter. It established to me what vampires were, these elegant, tragic, sensitive people. I was really just going with that feeling when writing Interview with the Vampire. I didn't do a lot of research after completing the novel, and following many rejections from publishers, Rice developed obsessive-compulsive disorder. She became obsessed with germs, thinking that she contaminated everything she touched, engaged in frequent and obsessive hand-washing, and obsessively checked locks on windows and doors of this period. Rice says, "What you see when you're in this state is every single flaw in our hygiene, and you can't control it, and you go crazy." In August 1974, after a year of therapy of her OCD, Rice attended the Squaw Valley's Writers' Conference at Squaw Valley, conducted by writer Ray Nelson. While at the conference, Rice met her future literary agent, Phyllis Sedell. In October 1974, Sedell sold the publishing rights to Interview with the Vampire to Alfred A. Knopf for a $12,000 advance of the hardcover rights, at a time when most new authors were receiving $2,000 advances. Interview with the Vampire was published in May 1976. In 1977, the Rices traveled to both Europe and Egypt for the first time. Following the publication of Interview with the Vampire while living in California, Rice wrote 2 historical novels, The Feast of All Saints and Cry to Heaven, along with 3 erotic novels, The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty, Beauty's Punishment, and Beauty's Release, under the pseudonym A.N. Raquel, and 2 more under the pseudonym Anne Rampling, The Exit to Eden, and Belinda. Rice then returned to the vampire genre with The Vampire Lestat and The Queen of the Damned, her best-selling sequels to Interview with the Vampire. Shortly after her June 1988 return to New Orleans, Rice penned The Witching Hour as an expression of her joy at coming home. Rice also continued her Vampire Chronicle series, which later grew to encompass 10 novels, and followed up on Witching Hour with Lasher and Talos, completing the Lives of the My Fair Witches trilogy. She also published Violin, A Tale of a Ghostly Haunting in 1997. Rice appeared on an episode of The Real World New Orleans that aired in 2000. Rice began another series called Christ the Lord Out of Egypt, published in 2005, chronicling the life of Jesus, after moving to Rancho Mirage, California in 2006. Rice wrote a second volume, Christ the Lord, The Road to Cana, published in March 2008, and was working on a third Christ the Lord, Kingdom of Heaven, in November 2008. She also wrote the first two books in her Songs of the Sephirim series, Angel Time and Of Love and Evil, and her memoir called Out of Darkness, A Spiritual Confession. On March 9th, 2014, Rice announced on her son Christopher's radio show, The Dinner Party with Christopher Rice and Eric Shaw Quinn, that she has completed another book in the Vampire Chronicles titled Prince Lestat, a true sequel to Queen of the Damned. The book was released on October 28th, 2014. In 2015, a sequel to the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, Beauty's Kingdom, was released. Rice died from complications of a stroke at a hospital in Rancho Mirage, California on December 11, 2021 at the age of 80. According to a statement from Rice's son, Christopher Rice, the family planned to inter her at the family mausoleum in Montreal Cemetery in New Orleans. Rice was laid to rest in January 2022. The Rice family mausoleum is also the burial site of Rice's husband, Stan Rice, and daughter, Michelle. One side of the tomb is stained glass. The other three sides are engraved with Stan Rice's poems from his book, False Prophet and Some Lamb. The mausoleum is open to the public during visiting hours. If you are interested in exploring the biography of Anne Rice, you should know the proper reading order. For the Vampire Chronicle books in order, it goes Interview with the Vampire Lestat, The Queen of the Damned, The Tale of the Body Thief, Menoch the Devil, The Vampire Armin, Merrick, Blood and Gold, Blackwood Farm, Blood Canticle, Prince Lestat and the Realms of Atlantis, Blood Communion, A Tale of Prince Lestat. While The Interview with the Vampire is the most famous of the series, other entries are worth reading if you like the genre. Sleeping Beauty books in order: The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty, Beauty's Punishment, Beauty's Release, Beauty's Kingdom. As you can probably guess, the medieval fantasy stories are loosely based on the story of Sleeping Beauty. Ramses the Dam books in order. Ramses the Dam is a trilogy that started in 1989. So it starts with The Mummy or Ramses the Dam, The Passion of Cleopatra, Ramses the Dam, The Reign of Osiris. The second and the third books in the trilogy were written with Christopher Rice, and the final installment was published posthumously after Anne Rice died. Lives on the Mayfair Witches book in order. As mentioned earlier, the Lives of the Mayfair Witches is somewhat connected to the Vampire Chronicles, The Witching Hour, Lasher, and Tautos. The trilogy has a crossover with Merrick, Blackwood Farm, and Blood Canticle. New Tales of the Vampire books in order. New Tales of the Vampires is a shorter series, and it includes only 2 books, Pandora and Vittorio the Vampire. While the books are mostly independent, it would be great if you read the Vampire Chronicles as well. Christ the Lord books in order. There are 2 novels in the Christ the Lord series: Christ the Lord Out of Egypt, Christ the Lord The Road to Cana. The first story focuses on the life of Jesus Christ when he was 7 and 8. The Songs of Sephirim books in order. The Songs of Sephirim books were published in 2009 and 2010. Angel Time and Of Love and Evil. The main character is named Toby O'Dare. The Wolf Gift Chronicle books in order. This 2-part story came out in 2012 and 2013. The Wolf Gift and The Wolves of Midwinter. The series has elements of horror, gothic, and fantasy. Stand-alone novels in order. Anne Rice wrote several standalone novels, and you can read them in any order you want since they are not a part of any series. The Feast of All Saints, Cry to Heaven, Servant of the Bones, Violin. Most of these novels have elements of historical fiction and horror. Non-fiction books. Anne Rice wrote a single non-fiction book, and in her autobiography called Out of Darkness, A Spiritual Confession. The autobiography explores important moments of Anne Rice's life in her connection to Jesus, growing up in a Catholic family, and inspiration for her thrilling stories. If you want something a bit different, you should know that Anne Rice wrote a graphic novel as well, The Wolf Gift, the graphic novel. It is reimagining of the story set in the modern world. There is also an audiobook, simpler way to explore someone's bibliography, and Anne Rice's stories are no different. You can go through all of these novels in the audio format, and it will save you so much time. As always, my good being, be loving and caring to each other. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe, and leave comments. Have a wonderful day.